former budget director for President Ronald Reagan, David Stockman. David, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. Your thoughts from the economic side of the conversation last night?
Well, they didn't do very much of it. It was a couple of minutes.
Again.
They didn't get into any depth. On the other hand, this election is over. Trump made a game defense of himself, enough to keep him in the race, but I think it's going to descend deeper into the gutter from here than ever before in American history. And the people of America are going to be disgusted, and they're not going to come out to vote. And a lot of them now feel free to vote their conscience and their conviction for the third-party candidate. So Hillary will have no mandate, and I think that's good, because she stands for everything that's wrecking this country. We're going to now have a crisis. There will be a market crash. There will be a recession. She will be a 45% politically crippled, mandateless president, and we are going to finally show the American people that this fantasy that both parties have been projecting is a fantasy, and it's got to end.
And a happy day to you, too.
Yes.
Holy moly, you think the election is over, you think Hillary won, you think her policies are going to be put in place and it's going to create recession and a market sell-off?
Yes, I think she has no policies to put in place because the government's going to be paralyzed. I don't think she won the debate. I think the media destroyed Donald Trump as a candidate. If you wanted, but if you wanted to have a national Sunday school teacher, you should have elected Huckabee. Okay, if you want to change the Fed, which is destroying savers and wage earners in America and creating the biggest bubble in history, you got to have a candidate who doesn't think Janet Yellen walks on water. Hillary does.
Let's just talk about the economic plans for a minute, because they both touched on Obamacare in their debate, and that's one of the big issues for business today.
Right.
And when we speak with business managers and CEOs, they say, we can't take on a lot of new workers. We've got this expense called Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act. She highlighted what she wants to fix. Listen to this. I want to get your reaction.
Sure.
I want very much to save what works and is good about the Affordable Care Act. But we've got to get costs down. We've got to provide some additional help to small businesses so that they can afford to provide health insurance.
Obamacare is a disaster. You know it. We all know it. It's going up at numbers that nobody's ever seen worldwide. We have right now almost $20 trillion in debt. Obamacare will never work.
So I want to pull this out of the story on economic growth. What do you think about the Obamacare argument?
There's nothing to save. There's nothing that works. Trump is right. It needs to be repealed, lock, stock, and barrel, but I would go beyond that. The payroll tax that we have already for Social Security and for Medicare is killing jobs and paychecks in America. If we need to have tax reform, we need to get rid of those taxes and tax imports and consumption, not labor and wages, given the fact that we've got the highest cost, uncompetitive wages in the world. They didn't even get to that, but at least when you go after Obamacare, it's not just about health, it's about why we've created no real breadwinner jobs since the year 2000. And it's because of this massive tax burden and because of really bad financial and Fed policy.
Which is what surprises me about Hillary's economic plan, because she doesn't talk about rolling back regulations. She doesn't talk about the fact that a lot of these regulations this year, the last 8 years under President Obama, have really stifled the business community. You look at any of the economic data points that we look at, businesses are not spending money. They're not investing. That's the problem.
Exactly. Real investment after depreciation.
Why doesn't she understand that?
Hillary understands nothing. She's part of the status quo. She believes that somehow all of this is working out for flyover America. It's not. It's helping the 1% for a while with a financial bubble and inflated assets that can't hold up.
Right.
Somehow Washington is prosperous because they spend money and they create $20 trillion of debt, which is going to explode in the years ahead because they have not repealed the business cycle. We've had 10 years now without a serious or since the last recession, 7 years. We're not going to go 20 years without a recession. Right. So it's baked into the cake, and that means the federal deficit and debt is going to explode. She said no word about it. In fact, she wants more free stuff for education. Right. She wants more people on Medicare when they're 50.
Well, that's the other
is,
thing, tax reform. Everybody talks about tax reform being so critical to any economic growth story.
Yeah.
Now, I recognize that we don't get a lot of revenue from the corporate tax rate anyway, because corporations figure out a way to pay no taxes or use all the loopholes. But a 15% corporate tax rate, would that move the needle on economic growth?
Sure, that would be a good idea. In fact, in the modern world where everything is mobile, technology, capital, ideas, and work, you shouldn't even have a corporate tax. Get rid of it. She spent the night saying we're going to go where the money is. That is really stupid. If you go where the money is, you're going to further undermine investment, you're going to undermine enterprise, you're going to undermine the ingredients of growth. Hillary Clinton will take us into a permanent recession, and when the baby boom is entirely retired and we're mired in recession and the debt is swirling towards $30 trillion and Social Security runs out of cash, that's where we'll be if you follow the path that she laid out last night.
You make a good point, because neither of these candidates have talked about the entitlements. And if you really want to follow the money, that's where the money is, the entitlement. So let's have a plan to get the budget balanced, rather than picking a side here. Okay,
you start.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
That, though, because that's the point, and it never gets across. The entitlements are $30 trillion a year. The corporate tax generates $275 billion, and it's very counterproductive, and it simply causes work to move other places.
Right.
Now, why can't they figure out that you take on the entitlements, that the better off affluent retirees take a means test, and you get rid of the corporate tax, get rid of the wage tax, and start taxing consumption and imports. It's not that hard, and it would make a giant difference.
Right, because if Trump does it, the first ad coming out of the Clinton campaign will be Donald Trump wants to take away your retirement. Donald Trump wants to take away all of the money that you've been saving for. I mean, that's the thing. Nobody wants to take away these promises that were put in place or even change them. Real quick, you sat down here when we started the debate. You said when we started this conversation, you said this election is over. But in the course of the conversation, you've been telling me that the Donald Trump economic policies, or maybe they're not Donald Trump economic policies to you, but just these economic policies that he's been talking about, could work. So why do you think the election is over when, in fact, you think his economic policies are good?
No, I think certain aspects are, but the point is the national media has decided to assassinate Donald Trump. That's what they've done. There's no question about it. Watch all weekend. They played that stupid tape from 11 years ago. Let's, play Bill Clinton's tape. These are not relevant. As I said, we're not electing the national Sunday school teacher. We are now going to be so deep in the mud for the next 30 days that the American people are going to be revulsed. And I think that's good. The Republican Party is going to end in fratricide here, because half of them will be for him, half of them are jumping ship. If we get rid of the Republican Party, that's good. If we have Hillary in power when the great crash and crisis comes, then the public will know we need a new party based on prosperity, peace, and liberty, and maybe there's a chance that we can dig out of this disaster that we're in.